Hi everyone, whoever is watching, it's great for you to be here. I am here with Mary and Chris Scott.
Hello.
Hi.
So, Mary and Chris, tell me a bit about your fostering journey. How did you come to fostering?
Okay. Well, a few years ago, we were living in the city of Leicester, and we decided that we were going to move house because I work just outside of Leicester. So we're going to move house. So when we looked to buy a new house, we felt like God was telling us to get a 3-bedroom house. We didn't need it. There was only me and Mary and my son. So we didn't need a 3-bedroom house. We didn't really know why God was directing us like that. But we obey God, and so we did it. So we bought a 3-bedroom house without really knowing what this spare bedroom was for. And then it didn't take long for God to tell us. And he put fostering on our heart, and we thought, well, maybe that's what this room's for. And so we started to explore that.
That's so interesting. The room came first before the car. That's very practical of God.
Absolutely, he wanted to provide everything, make sure everything was in place before anything happened. It's amazing how we talk about how fostering is a call from God, and a call can sound very out there, like it's not specific, but when we go through the Bible and we see how God actually does call people, it's through the steps, through preparing the way, preparing room for things that He's calling us to, and then also impressing it on our hearts. So it's really cool to see that happening with you. So how long have you been fostering for now?
18 months.
Just over 18 months.
Mm-hmm. A young 9-year-old boy, and he's just a bundling, bouncy.
So we've had, since we passed panel, since we were approved, we've had one placement, and he's stayed with us, and he will stay with us. So we always looked to be a long-term foster placement. We always wanted to provide a home permanently for the child. That's what we went into it for, and that's what God provided.
He very soon became part of our family.
Yeah,
Literally after week 1 he was part of the family, and now we're all just really close, and it's part of everyday life, isn't it?
So the assessment took forever. The assessment is quite in-depth, quite thorough, and it should be. That's the way it should be, but it seemed to be going on forever and ever and ever. We got through panel, and then within 2 weeks of us getting through panel, we got this referral. So the lad came to stay with us pretty much 2 weeks after being approved.
Perfect child for our family. So it all worked out. It's what God wanted.
And when we were looking into fostering, we didn't really look at local authority at all. We knew that God was in it, and we wanted God to be in it. So Mary Googled Christian Fostering Agencies, and of course
Cornerstone came up.
only one came up. That's what we went with. We never thought twice about it.
Oh, that's really amazing. So tell me about when you were thinking about fostering, through the journey of assessment and everything, and even now as you foster, who has come around you? Who are the community that you've brought along the journey with you?
We've got some friends that were going through the adoption process at the same time as we were being assessed, so we were talking to them about things, and we were listening to their concerns, they were listening to our concerns, just nattering through it, wasn't it?
It's good because we could get together and moan about social workers. It was quite good. Not that we had anything to moan about, to be fair.
You've got family, haven't you, that foster as well? Yeah,
my cousin and his wife, they've been fostering for a while. And I've had a little bit of experience because my mum and dad used to foster when we were younger. So we had foster kids coming through the house when we were kids. So it wasn't alien to me, I think.
Also, there were other people being assessed at the same time through Cornerstone. So Cornerstone encouraged us all to set up a group so we could all communicate with each other and iron out any concerns. So.
And of course Cornerstone themselves are a great support as well. The way they're set up, the way they're organised, It's not just a fostering agency, it's a fostering family.
Yeah.
And that's the way they want to be, and that's the way they are. And it certainly felt like that for us. Like we had that family support around us from Cornerstone and everybody associated with them.
That's really great. Yeah, the sense of family within Cornerstone does help build an environment within which you feel connected to other people who are going through the journey with you. Yeah. So I wonder if someone watching had a friend that they discover is planning to foster, or maybe they go to church and they make friends with a foster carer. What would you say to them? How would you advise them or encourage them to support that foster carer that they know?
I'd put them straight in contact with Cornerstone, to be fair, because I know they've been supportive for us. We know that we meet with a social worker and have supervision with them, and we know how supportive they are. There's a 24-hour call system where we can get advice at any time. So that's what you do. You put your friend straight into to Cornerstone for them to assess those people. It's like if you're with an agency that's so supportive, you've got to encourage them to be with them.
I think on practical levels as well, you just let them know that you're available to talk to, because that's really important, just to talk about any fears or concerns, or just to chew the cud sometimes. It's just important to know that you've got a listening ear somewhere, and just to be that listening ear, I think, is really important. And you also have to explain that it's not all rosy either. It can be difficult, and the assessment is difficult, and it's meant to be difficult. And there will be hills to climb. You're there to explain that as well, I think. And also to provide practical help, especially when they become foster carers. It's important to be practical help. So you could offer lifts, you can offer to take them out, and also be there for them, not just for the kids that they look after as well. So it's sometimes easy to get lost in the kids that we care for without caring for ourselves. So I think to be able to care for us as adults as well is important.
I know, like, for example, and this is something that a lot of people do. When I had my baby, people brought us meals during the first few months, and it's so significant for us. So is there something that people can do for, I guess, new foster carers or foster carers during placement, some practical things like that you can think of, or maybe something that someone has done for you that you are like, that was something that I always needed?
I think one thing, if they have kids of around the same sort of age themselves, play dates are quite important.
Oh yeah.
So there's other kids that they can play with. I mean, when a foster child comes into a home, it can be quite a scary thing. So to be able to give them the experience with other kids is important. So play dates would be quite useful for us anyway.
That's really good.
Accepting them as part of family as well. That's the main thing as well.
That's really amazing. So what about the church? How can the church support foster carers more? Because this is a ministry that you're doing as a family. This is a calling that you respond to. How can the church, it can be church as in like capital C, so pastors and the formal structures, or even people in church, how can they support foster carers?
I think a big one is just through conversation, through talking to us about it. I mean, we don't walk in saying we foster carers, we've got a big page, we foster carers, but it doesn't take long for them to realise that that's who we are, and the lad that's with us, and to understand that he's a looked after child. But just to talk to us and have conversations, and have a want to understand the situation, I think is useful. Acceptance
as well, just accepting us as a family, and just becoming part of the church community, and promoting it as well. It's important that churches promote fostering. There's a lot of children out there in the system, so the more foster carers there is, the better. You're giving a child a home at the end of the day.
He just calls us to look after the little ones, doesn't he? So if it's right, it's not right for everybody, but if it's on somebody's heart, then it's important to be able to promote that. inclusion as well. Just seeing us as a member of the church family, you know, not as a labelled, you know, we are foster carers, he's a foster child, just including us in everything, and making us feel part of the church, making us feel part of the church family, without any stigma or, you know, worry about how they can interact with us. So that's important.
Having a children's team as well, so that they, you know, the children can go away and play with the other children, and during the service, that's ideal. And then the children can then become friends with other children in the church, which is, it's amazing.
I mean, in our church, it's been really useful because they have had that conversation with us about, okay, so what is this child's needs? How can we best cater for this child? How can we care for him? And to have that conversation, and not to be afraid to have that conversation. And of course, the most important thing of all is they pray for us. Keeping us in their prayers, keeping our situation in their prayers through their prayer networks and stuff. That's the foundation, really, isn't it?
Did you have this conversation? Are you in the same church that you were in when you began fostering?
No,
we've moved. We've moved to a church that is in our community, closer to us. So, and that works out well for us, because obviously there's lots of community events that go on that we're close to.
So when we moved from the city, we didn't move church. We stayed at the church because churches become family, and you don't like to move if you don't have to. But over the past few months, again, we felt like it's time to move to a local church, and it was a great move for us because foster child in our care has really grown in that place. They've really accepted him, and it's wonderful to see him grow there, and it's the right place for all of us.
Walked in the door, met the children there, and he's got some really good friends now. You know, what he calls his best friends, so it's ideal.
That's fantastic. How did you
acceptance as soon as he walked in?
How did you have the conversations with people in church about you fostering? Was it easy? Are you the ones who brought it up, or did it just come naturally in conversation?
Yeah, I think the church is a very welcoming church. People will just come over and start talking to you. It's on my heart, so I do tend to promote it. You know, obviously, I'm always looking for people that might actually foster themselves.
You're a good agent, aren't you? Yeah, it was quite natural. It's quite natural. People weren't fazed by it. People were genuinely interested. And really accepting. I mean, it did help the fact that the church that we moved to, I did know a few people there anyway from my work, so we weren't complete strangers. But yeah, it's been very natural, hasn't it? They've been really accepting.
Oh, that's really fantastic. So, do you have any last things to say about, you know, creating an environment where foster carers can thrive? What does that mean to you, and how can people participate in that?
It's about wanting to see a child grow and develop from difficult situations, and it's about having a heart for it. If you haven't got a heart for it, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like you say, it's a ministry, it's a calling. It's not a job, and you really need to have a heart for it, because it can be really hard work. You know, there are times that it is really hard work, and it does not disrupt's not the right word, but it does change your family dynamic, and you have to be ready for that. It can be so rewarding as well. It's often very rewarding. It was the best thing we ever did. Definitely, without doubt, it's brought so much to our lives.
Yeah, the child's brought so much joy into our lives as well. An amazing thing to do.
It is. And it's funny, what we found is, after we became foster carers, how many other people were either interested in it or had some experience of it themselves. You suddenly talk to people and say, oh, well, we thought about fostering, or we did the fostering before, or oh yes, we've got a foster child, and you think, oh okay, I didn't know that. And so it's amazing how many people you bump into that are involved as well.
That's really amazing. Well, thank you so much for this conversation.